We've been studying the Civil Rights Movement, and last cycle we focused on the first two major victories of the Civil Rights Movement. And the first one was in 1954 and the Supreme Court case Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. If you remember, the Supreme Court stepped in and said no longer is the phrase separate but equal constitutional, and all public schools need to be integrated, where black and white children needed to go to school together. Well, this sent shockwaves through the American South, where they had no intentions of desegregating, but by rule and by law, now all public schools were to be integrated and black and white children were attending school together. So that was the first major victory of the Civil Rights Movement. The next year, the second Civil Rights Movement that was extremely successful was the Montgomery bus boycott of 1955. If you remember Rosa Parks, she sparked this movement, and for over a year, the African American citizens of Montgomery, Alabama refused to ride the public transportation bus system. And in 1956, the next year, the Supreme Court of the United States steps in and rules that the segregated buses of Montgomery, Alabama were unconstitutional. And so all the buses were desegregated, and black and whites were riding the buses in the same area at the same time, and it was the second huge victory for the Civil Rights Movement, which is now being led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now we're going to move in today to the third major victory of the Civil Rights Movement in 1957, 3 years after the Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas ruling where black and white children could attend the same schools. There were 9 black students in Little Rock, Arkansas, who wanted to attend Little Rock High School. And by law, they were able to attend, so they enrolled. And on the first day of the school, the governor of Arkansas, Orville Faubus, sent in the National Guard troops of Arkansas to prevent these 9 black students from attending Little Rock High School. And the white mobs were formed, and they were yelling obscenities at the 9 students and trying to intimidate them physically. And the 9 students were forced to leave that day, and they couldn't get into the high school. Well, President Eisenhower saw this in 1957. He was the president at the time. Also, his nickname was Ike. And so he ordered in, later on, he ordered in federal troops, the Marines, to protect these 9 students as they attended the school, because by law they could attend. This became a state rights versus national rights issue, and of course the national rights override the state rights, and in 1957 these 9 students were able to attend Little Rock High School for the first time. And it wasn't well received in Arkansas, but by law they were able to go, and this was the third major victory of the Civil Rights Movement.